All right, folks, buckle up, because today's case is straight out of a true crime nightmare. Picture this. It's October 1975 in the oh-so-charming town of Greenwich, Connecticut, the kind of place where people sip on expensive wine and talk about their summer homes. But that whole safe suburban dream, that got shattered real quick. 15-year-old Martha Moxley, a bright, beautiful, and talented young girl, was brutally murdered. And when I say brutal, I mean bludgeoned to death with a golf club. Yeah, not exactly the way you want your night to end. But here's where it gets real sketchy. That golf club, it wasn't just some random weapon. It was traced back to the home of a very powerful family. We're talking money, influence, and political connections. And that's when the real chaos began. The investigation seemed simple at first, but then, plot twist, it took a wild turn, leaving everyone wondering, was justice actually served? John, and welcome to True Crime Stories. Today we're diving into the shocking murder of Martha Moxley, a case filled with privilege, deception, and a family's relentless fight for justice. So, what really happened that night? And why did it take decades to get answers? Let's get into it. Among her peers, her vibrant and outgoing personality earned her many friends. She often found herself at the center of gatherings as the Moxley family settled into their new home in Greenwich. Martha continued to thrive in her academic pursuits. Her dedication to her studies was evident in her outstanding grades and educational achievements. She displayed a natural talent for critical thinking, problem-solving, which set her apart from her peers. Martha's dreams and aspirations extended beyond her academic pursuits. She had a strong desire to make a difference in the world through her writing. Her passion for storytelling and her ability to communicate her ideas eloquently made her an ideal candidate for a career in journalism. October 30th, 1975 was commonly known as Mischief Night in Greenwich. This tradition involved children and teens engaging in mischievous behavior, causing minor disturbances in neighborhoods and communities. The night is often associated with vandalism, property damage, and pranks. Excited to participate in the festivities, Martha Moxley spent the evening playing ding-dong ditch and toilet papering homes with her friends. It was a light-hearted evening, filled with laughter and innocent fun. Among the teenagers out of the party was Thomas Skakel, the 17-year-old nephew of Ethel Kennedy, the widow of former U.S. Senator Robert F. Kennedy. Innocent fun among the teenagers out of the party was excessively high. 990. As their name became synonymous with American politics, and their influence was felt at all levels of society. President John F. Kennedy was seen as a symbol of youthful energy and change, and his charismatic presence captivated the nation. His administration made significant strides in space exploration, civil rights, and foreign policy. After President Kennedy's assassination, Robert F. Kennedy became the torchbearer for the family's political aspirations. He was known for his dedication to social justice and unwavering support for the civil rights movement. His assassination further devastated the already grieving Kennedy family. However, their family's involvement in various scandals and controversies has tarnished their reputation, casting a shadow on their political legacy, according to the sources close to the case. Martha Moxley and Thomas Skakel had been flirting, even kissing that night. The last time anyone saw Martha Moxley alive was around 9:30 p.m., when she was last seen with Thomas Skakel near the pool in his backyard. From that point on, her whereabouts remain a mystery until the following morning, when a gruesome discovery was made that would shock the entire community on October 31st, the day after Mischief Night and Halloween. Martha Moxley's body was found under a tree in her yard. Her clothing and underwear were pulled down to her ankles, but the medical examiner could not find any signs of sexual assault. Pieces of a 6-iron golf club surrounded Martha's body. The golf club became a crucial piece of evidence in piecing together the events that led to Martha's death. The chief medical examiner for the state of Connecticut, Dre William C. Marone, conducted an autopsy on Martha's body, which revealed shocking details. His autopsy findings painted a clear picture of Martha's death. He reported that she suffered multiple lacerations of the scalp, fractures of the skull, and contusions and lacerations of the brain. These injuries, combined with the lack of any apparent signs of a struggle, led the medical examiner to conclude that Martha's death was caused as a result of violent assault. One of the most intriguing aspects of the investigation was the weapon used to inflict the injuries and cause the death of Martha Moxley. Upon examining the body, the medical examiner revealed that the weapon was an iron golf club, specifically a 9-9, based on the information gathered during the autopsy. __classified. Martha's death as a homicide, the brutality of the injuries, and the strong evidence pointing to the club as the murder weapon solidified this classification, leaving little doubt that her death was not an accident or suicide. Witnesses came forward to report that Martha was last seen with Thomas Skakel on the night of her death. These statements raised suspicion and prompted detectives to turn their attention to the Skakel family. Further investigation revealed that the golf club used to kill Martha was traced back to the Skakel residence. This evidence further fueled suspicions that the two Skakel brothers may have been involved in the crime. Despite the early progress made by the investigation, it quickly came to a halt, Skakel's father actively obstructing the progress of the investigation. He imposed significant restrictions on law enforcement's access to crucial information, hindering potential leads, and hindering the investigation's ability to gather sufficient evidence against the Skakel brothers. The Skakel family's interference began from the very beginning of the investigation. One of the ways they hindered progress was by prohibiting the police from accessing their son's school medical records. These records could have provided valuable information regarding Thomas and Skakel's behavior and any potential health issues they may have had at the time of the crime. By denying the investigators access to these records, the Skakel family prevented them from gathering crucial insights into potential motives or IIs. In addition to obstructing access to school medical records, the Skakel family's father also engaged in other forms of interference he actively discouraged. Witnesses from coming forward or sharing their knowledge of the crime, which made it difficult for investigators to obtain first-hand accounts of the incidents, which further hindered the ability to gather sufficient evidence against the Skakel brothers. Furthermore, witnesses from coming forward were uninvoluntarily denied access, so Skakel furthermore ramped up intensification. The officers shot the Skakel brothers. Furthermore, witnesses from coming forward were uninvoluntarily denied access, so Skakel furthermore went up interference. Furthermore, witnesses from coming forward were uninvoluntarily denied access, so Skakel furthermore went up interference. The Skakel family's father exerted his influence to prevent any potential evidence from being collected or shared. He engaged in legal maneuvers to delay or obstruct the investigation, making it difficult for the authorities to gather the necessary evidence to mount a successful prosecution. Ultimately, the Skakel family's interference had a substantial impact on the investigation's progress. The Kennedy name being connected to the case further intensified the media frenzy surrounding the case when the news of Martha's murder broke. Thomas and Michael Kennedy, the son of Robert F. Kennedy, found themselves at the center of a media firestorm. Reporters and the public were eager to uncover any involvement or potential links to Martha's death. As members of the Kennedy family, the brothers became the subject of intense scrutiny and speculation, despite the intense media tension. Thomas and Michael maintained their innocence throughout the investigation. Thomas and Michael insisted that they had no involvement in Martha's murder and that they were completely innocent. They repeatedly denied that they had been at the party where Martha was killed, and denied it having any knowledge of the circumstances surrounding her death. Thomas and Michael's denials caught the attention of numerous media outlets and the public, further fueling the intrigue surrounding the case. However, despite widespread media cover, there was no concrete evidence linking the brothers to Martha's murder. The murder of Martha Moxley gained international attention due to the connection of the Kennedy name to the case. As members of the Kennedy family, Thomas and Michael became the subject of intense media coverage. However, the brothers denied any involvement in Martha's murder and maintained their innocence over time. Suspicions began to shift toward Kenneth Littleton, who was hired by the Skakel family just a few hours before Martha's murder. Kenneth Littleton was a live-in tutor for the Skakel brothers. Starting his job only hours before Martha was killed, he was seen as a potential accomplice to the brothers due to their proximity to the scene of the crime. His relationship with the boys was a subject of scrutiny, with some suggesting he may have coerced them into committing the murder. As time went on, the accounts given by Thomas Michael Skakel regarding the events of that night began to change. People reported hearing Michael confessing to killing Martha with a golf club. Furthermore, a former classmate of Michael's testified that he was given special treatment and bragged about getting away with murder given his connection with the Kennedy family. Numerous books have been written about the Moxley murder, attempting to uncover the truth behind her death. Acclaimed writer Dominic Dunn released a book a season in Purgatory, which revolved around the Moxley murder case. A season, journalist Dominic Dunn conducted extensive research to provide a comprehensive account of the events leading up to Martha's death. Another book was published that shed light on the Moxley murder case, A Murder in Greenwich, by Mark Furman. A former police detective, Furman gained Nori for his involvement in the O.J. Simpson trial. In his book, Furman delves into the investigation, offering his own perspective on the events. He also delves into the theories surrounding the case and presents his own theories about the killer's identity. These books explore the different possibilities put forth by investigators and those seeking justice for Martha. One theory that gained attention involved members of the Skakel family, a prominent family in Greenwich, with close ties to the Moxley. Michael Skakel was a suspect in the case from the beginning, and suspicion lingered around him for many years. However, the case remained unsolved, despite media and public interest, leading to frustration among investigators and the public. The tragic death of Martha Moxley left the community in shock and prompted a lengthy investigation lasting nearly 2 decades. In 1998, a jury was convened to review the circumstances surrounding the murder after an exhaustive inquiry that lasted almost 2 years. It was determined there was sufficient evidence to charge Michael Skakel with Martha's murder in January 2000. An arrest warrant was issued for Michael Skakel, who turned himself to the police. He was quickly released on bail, posting a $500,000 bond. On March 14, 2000, he was arraigned in juvenile court, despite Michael Skakel being 15 years old at the time of Martha's murder. The judge ruled that he should be tried as an adult. Michael Skakel's trial began on May 7, 2002, in Norwalk, Connecticut. Prosecutors presented a strong case, presenting evidence of Michael's connection to the crime and his inconsistent alibi, the defense argued. that Michael was innocent and could not be involved in the murder. They claimed that Michael was at a cousin's house at the time Martha was killed, watching Monty Python The Murder Trial, involving Martha Moxley. Was a highly publicized event that captivated the attention of the national media as well as the public locally. Many people closely monitored the case, holding a strong desire for justice to be served. For 16 years, he led the country, the victim, throughout the trial. The prosecution presented a book proposed by Michael Skakel, revealing his involvement in the case. The trial garnered significant media attention, both nationally and locally. Many people followed the case closely, hoping that justice would be served for Martha Moxley during the trial. The prosecution presented the jury a book proposal written by Michael Skakel, in which he admitted to touching himself sexually in a tree on the evening of the murder. This proposal stated that Michael was at the crime scene that night, but he never admitted to directly harming Martha. Ultimately, the jury convicted Michael Skakel of Martha Moxley's murder and sentenced him to 20 years to life in prison. This decision was met with mixed reactions from the public, with some expressing satisfaction and others expressing concern. Michael Skakel appealed his conviction, raising several arguments. One of his main claims was that the trial should have been heard in juvenile court rather than superior court. Michael Skakel argued that his age at the time of the crime, 15, should have disqualified him from being charged as an adult. Additionally, Michael argued that the prosecution had engaged in misconduct by failing to disclose certain exculpatory evidence. He claimed that this failure violated his due process rights and undermined the fairness of his trial. However, in January 2006, the Connecticut Supreme Court rejected Mish's claims and affirmed his conviction in 2007. Michael Skakel hired a new attorney and filed a motion for retrial in Connecticut court based on a new theory of what happened to Martha Moxley. According to his defense team, there was evidence to suggest the involvement of Yano Bryant, a cousin of late basketball superstar Kobe Bryant. Yano Bryant, a former classmate of Michael Skakel, claimed that on the night of the murder, he and his friends had wanted to sexually assault Martha in a recorded interview conducted by a private investigator hired by Skakel's defense team. Yano Bryant alleged that his mother had warned him against coming forward with this information, fearing that he would be framed for the unsolved murder. This revelation sparked renewed interest in the case and led to a fresh round of evidentiary hearings. The prosecution countered that Yano may have lied about the story because he was looking to sell a play about the case around this time. Michael's defense team fired several full-time investigators to review information regarding the case. They believed that new evidence would come to light that would support their argument. However, Michael was innocent. However, their efforts were thwarted when a Supreme Court judge denied Michael's request for a new trial. The judge stated that Gano's testimony was not credible and that there was no evidence that the prosecutors acted with misconduct during Michael's first trial. Once again, Michael's attorneys appealed this decision to the Connecticut Supreme Court in 2009. A panel of 5 judges heard arguments of the appeal, and 1 year later the panel ruled 4-1 against Michael's appeal. Despite the setbacks, Michael and his attorneys continued to fight for his freedom. In January 22, they argued for his sentence to be reduced, stating that he had been a model prisoner and deserved leniency. However, their bid was unsuccessful, and Michael's sentence remained in 2013. Skakel appealed his conviction, alleging that his trial attorney Michael Sherman had provided inadequate representation during the 2013 hearing. Michael Skakel accused Sherman of instead basking in the limelight of being involved in the infamous Martha Moxley case. Michael Skakel also claimed that Sherman was more interested in collecting fees to settle his financial problems than defending him. This allegation raised serious concerns about the integrity of his trial and the possibility of wrongful conviction. Michael Skakel was granted a new trial when it was determined that Michael Sherman had failed to adequately represent him when he was convicted in 2002. He was granted bail in 2005 on a $1,200,000 bond. The conditions of his release included the use of an ankle bracelet with a GPS tracking device, prohibitions on contact with the Moxley family, and regular check-ins with his parole officer. 3 years after Skakel's release in 2013, the Connecticut Supreme Court ruled in a controversial decision to reinstate his conviction for the murder of Martha Moxley. However, in 2018, the Connecticut Supreme Court vacated Skakel's conviction and ordered a new trial, citing insufficient evidence to establish his guilt. Beyond a reasonable doubt, the ruling sent shockwaves through the legal community and renewed speculation about the true nature of the crime. Despite the prospect of a new trial in October 2020, the chief state attorney informed the Supreme Court that they would not be retrying Michael Skakel and Martha's murder. The decision came after a comprehensive review of the evidence, and the chief state attorney stated that they did not believe the state had sufficient evidence to prove Skakel's guilt. Beyond a reasonable doubt, this decision marked the end of a lengthy legal battle that had spanned decades and left many unanswered questions about the murder of Martha Moxley in 2004. Through quiet reflection, Martha Moxley in 2023, Michael Skakel, who had been released from prison after being convicted of the murder of Martha Moxley in 2002, filed lawsuits against the police investigator in Greenwich. The lawsuits alleged malicious prosecution, violation of constitutional rights, and their claims. According to Michael's attorney, the fact that Michael spent over 11 years in prison for a crime he did not commit meant he could never be compensated for the lost time. The lawsuits filed by Michael alleged that the lead investigator on the case had engaged in misconduct and intimidated witnesses when taking their statements. Michael claimed that the investigator had threatened witnesses to bring them forward with false testimony. This alleged abuse of power on the part of the lead investigator raised serious questions about the integrity of the investigation. Subsequent conviction of Michael Skakel. Additionally, the lawsuits stated that the investigator was seeking to exploit Michael's case for personal gain. It was alleged that the investigator was working on a book and a film deal centered around Michael's alleged involvement in Martha's murder. While still actively pursuing the investigation, Martha's brother, John Moxley, told Fox News in an interview shortly after Michael Skakel's release that he still struggles to make sense of it. John expressed that the news of Michael Skakel's freedom shocked him, and he couldn't comprehend the reasoning behind the court's decision. He firmly believes Michael Skakel is guilty and asserts that Michael Skakel's release does not mean that he is innocent, but rather that it has to do with the judges and technicalities of the case. In John Moxley's mind, Michael Skakel killed his sister, and this fact will never change despite Michael Skakel's freedom. John Moxley believes that he will always be imprisoned mentally. John thinks that Michael Skakel will be haunted by his actions for the rest of his life. Oxygen Network produced a compelling documentary that delved into the circumstances surrounding Martha Moxley's murder. The Moxley family decided to participate in the documentary, stating they wanted to keep Martha's memory alive and shed light on the truth. However, one person heavily involved in the case opted to not participate: Michael Skakel, the alleged perpetrator. While Michael Skakel did not participate in the documentary, his cousin Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did. Kennedy Jr. expressed strong belief in Michael's innocence and stated that he had damning evidence to clear his cousin's name. Robert Kennedy Jr. published a book titled Framed: Why Michael Skakel Spent Over a Decade in Prison for a Murder He Didn't Commit. However, not everyone agreed. So, after decades of investigations, twists, and legal battles, where does that leave us? Well, with more questions than answers. Martha Moxley's family was not happy when a certain book on the case dropped. Why? Because instead of bringing closure, it just felt like ripping open an old wound without actually helping solve the case. Imagine someone writing a book about the worst moment of your life and being like, "Hey, this'll be great for discussion." Yeah, not exactly a bestseller in the Moxley household. Now, let's talk suspects. First up, Michael Skakel, one of the most infamous names tied to this case. Some say he was fueled by jealousy, rage, and maybe a little too much pent-up rich kid energy. Martha had grown close with Michael's brother, Thomas, and that might have made Michael snap. Maybe he saw something that night, something that set him off. Then there's Thomas Skakel himself. Some believe he killed Martha after she rejected his advances. You know, because nothing says I handle rejection well like murder. But wait, the plot thickens. Enter Kenneth Littleton, the Skakel family tutor. Some theories suggest he might have been involved, and then there are those who say this was a completely random attack by a stranger. Someone passing through town with a grudge or a dark agenda. So, what do you think? Did Michael Skakel, in a fit of jealousy, grab a golf club and do the unthinkable? Did Thomas Skakel, angry at rejection, commit a horrifying crime? Or was this something totally different? A random act of violence that nobody saw coming? The truth is, we still don't know. And until more evidence emerges, we're left with speculation, unanswered questions, and one of the most haunting mysteries in American crime history. That was the case of Martha Moxley. Thanks for watching.